Good morning, members, and to the viewing public who are watching through our live feed and our social media platform. Today, the chair will call the joint committee meeting of both the Ways and Means Standing Committee and, of course, the Senate Fiscal Affairs Committee to order. And at this time, I'd like to ask Ms. Claire Sablon to call the roll of the Ways and Means.
Representative Ralph N. Yumo. Representative Denita Kaipat Yangtamay. Representative Patrick H. Sannicolas. Representative Malcolm J. Omar.
Present.
Representative Julie A. Ogo. Representative Thomas John D.O.C. Manglonia. Representative Marissa R. Flores.
Present.
Representative Joseph A. Flores.
Present.
Representative Joel C. Camacho. Representative Angelo A. Camacho. Representative Roman C. Beneventi.
Here you get.
Representative Vincent R. O'Don. Representative Roy A. Adda.
Here.
Representative Blas Jonathan B.J.T. Atto.
Present.
Representative John Paul P. Sablon.
Present.
Chairman, we have 10 members present.
Thank you, Ms. Claire. With 10 members present, we have duly established a quorum to conduct this joint committee meeting. And at this time, I yield to Chairman Jude Hofsnyder.
Sizus Masi, Chairman JP Sablon, Hafaday and Tiro. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the House Chamber. At this time, I wish to recognize Mr. or Miss Jolene Dueñas Tagawal to please call the roll to effectuate a quorum for the Senate Fiscal Affairs.
Senator Ronnie M. Cabo,
Present.
Senator Manny Gregory T. Pashtu,
Stiga.
Senator Francisco Q. Cruz, Senator Jude U. Hofschneider,
Gay.
Senator Karina L. Magofnia, Senator Donald M. Manglonia,
Present.
Senator Paul A. Manglonia. Mr. Chairman, 5 members are present, 2 members are absent.
We have 5 members present with 2 absent. We do have the requisite number to proceed with this meeting this morning. Mr. Chairman, I know you back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving along in our order of business, we are now on item 3, the adoption of the agenda. And do I hear a motion? There is a motion to adopt today's agenda, and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Motion is adopted. Moving along on our next order of business, we are on item 4, public comments. So at this time, if there's any members of the public who are here in the gallery who wishes to make comments, this is the opportunity. The podium is open. Seeing that there is no public comments is now closed, and we move further down on our order of business. Item 5, old business, there happens to be none. We are now on item 6, new business, and we are here today with Madam Secretary of Finance, Ms. Tracy Norita, and her team. We are also here with OMB Special Assistant to the Governor, Ms. Vicky Villagomez. We are also here before us also is Mr. Epi Cabrera from the Office of Grants and Management. So with that said, we are here to discuss the revised fiscal year 2026 budget submission from the administration, which is House Governor's Communication 24-65 and Senate Governor's Communication 24-139. So at this time, we shall open now for question and answers. But before that, the chair would like to give the floor to the 3 individuals who are before us to have to provide an opening statement with regards to the revised budget coming from the administration. Madam Secretary, please, you have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, and thank you to this joint committee for giving us the opportunity to be here today. We are ready to answer questions regarding the governor's revised budget. As you will see, there was a change in the revenue projection from the initial revised projection that was provided to the governor on September 22nd. And then there was a subsequent change that included additional funds for appropriation that brought us up to 158 million in gross revenues that were projected, and an additional 3.7 million available for appropriation. This letter that was sent to the governor is attached to his communication for your reference, and I've brought my team here today from the Division of Treasury and the Division of Revenue and Tax to answer any questions. So I look forward to a discussion with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Ms. V.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the legislature. As you consider revisions to the budget, I respectfully ask that you weigh both scenarios carefully. Scenario 1, with the MPLT loan secured, offers 138.4 million in net availability. It allows us to restore paid holidays, support our public schools with a 37.7 million allocation, and reduce staffing impacts by eliminating mostly vacant positions. Scenario 2, without the loan, presents deeper cuts and fewer options to preserve essential services. The contrast between these scenarios is clear. One offers stability and strategic investment. The other demands more sacrifice. Your deliberation today will shape the future of our workforce, our public safety, and education. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration on the upcoming revision.
Thank you, Ms. V. Mr. Epi Cabrera, you may proceed.
Good morning and thank you. I'm here to answer any questions regarding federal. Please understand that the federal government is going through a shutdown. Different agencies in the government are being affected. Some grants are getting cut. However, we stand with the administration with their scheduling of the austerity measures, and again, I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Epi Cabrera. So with that, we shall proceed now with questions and answers. And the chair would like to start with Secretary of Finance. The realized fourth quarter collections and projections in the tune of over 6 million. Can you please share to the joint committee what source of funding was this coming from on the fourth quarter of last fiscal year?
My microphone's not working. Maybe try and turn off this. Okay, I think it's because there's two microphones.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Test, we can. In regards to the Q4 revenue report, which is a cumulative report of all 4 quarters included, what we saw again on September 22nd, as of September 17, was that we were anticipating a shortfall of 2.8 million. However, towards the end of the month, the collections increased. And after my team was able to finalize the collection report, we saw that certain revenue categories, as usual, were performing better than others. And so the increases, if you can refer to the attachment A to my letter to the governor on the cumulative revenue collections as of 9/30/2025, you'll see that the income tax category increased by 24%. Majority of these collections are coming from BGRT, wage and salary tax, personal income tax, and penalties and interest. I did mention in my letter that the significant increase in penalties and interest was due to the bankruptcy settlement payment that we received in the fourth quarter for the penalties and interest. However, the principal amount for the casino GRT is held separately and is not part of the general fund, only the penalties and interest. So you will see that increase on line 6 on the income tax category. However, when you go below that and you start looking at the other tax categories, such as excise tax or import tax, you'll see a decline of 46%. You'll see a decline in hotel occupancy tax at 16% and beautification tax at 16%. And so you'll see where a high increase in income taxes offsets the decrease in other tax categories. So yes, this is information that's showing other economic indicators of decline. But again, the increases that we have seen and that we were able to analyze the data, that it's mostly coming from the construction industry, specifically construction contractors.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So with this collections that we have realized in the fourth quarter, in result of the construction developments within the Commonwealth to include the military buildup. So if you realize in the fourth quarter in the tune of over 6 million, what are we expecting in the first quarter of this fiscal year and moving forward with regards to this income tax?
For specifically to construction, again, that all depends on the progress of the projects. We do know that there are still some projects, military projects happening on Tinian. We do know that we anticipate more EDA projects to enter into construction. However, the actual collection of the construction tax or BGRT, again, depends on the progress of the project. So that is something that is difficult for us to ascertain. But again, that's why we have to just watch closely on the revenue reports. Because in the construction industry, there could be many delays. We just don't know.
Does your office knows what are the projects currently with the military buildup? Are you guys monitoring that very carefully? Are we realizing any collection, whether it's from BGRT as opposed to those developments, income taxes, and et cetera?
If I may, Chairman, could I call up the Director for Revenue and Taxation to give you more on,
Yes.
perspective on.
Sarge,
Yeah.
please escort the Director of Revenue and Tax.
Was the chairman that asked? Morning, Chairman. Yes, Division of Revenue Taxation has been monitoring all the activities related to the military buildup on Tinian. We are aware of all the projects and all the companies involved with the buildup as well.
Can you elaborate on those projects and what are the figures of these projects right now that are ongoing? At what figures are we at right now that you have been monitoring?
There are multiple projects happening in Tinian right now, but as far as revenue collections, the collections from the military buildup alone exceeds the rest of the construction activities from previous years.
Can we fairly say that it's over 800 million in projects right now, or what is the figures right now?
Well, in the figures for tax collection, I think, if I recall, would be around 7 million, 6 million, 7 million. I don't have the exact number on me right now.
Is that something that you can formulate for for this joint committee to review on a later date, in a couple of days?
We can share an aggregate data, but nothing too detailed.
Right. At least what have you realized in collections, right? And
Correct.
of course, just based on what you collect, you can calculate it backwards on what this project is actually from that collection. Is that something that you can formulate for this joint committee?
Yes, we can.
All right, and there is a follow-up on that question.
Just-
Recognize Representative
Thank you, Chair.
Rafi Mo-
Just point of clarification, because the Secretary has mentioned the decrease of excise about 40%. It's been constant since the first quarter, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So this is just from my observation, because I do monitor my family's purchases with regards to the hardwares. So from last fiscal year and this fiscal year, we actually increased purchases because I guess the DR and all that's been moving. So I don't see the reduction of excise by that much unless construction companies are importing all items and they're being charged the 3% and not the 5%. And even if you look at the purchases of vehicles, Micro Corporation and Nissan, they still import the same amount of cars. So how does that doesn't translate to a decrease in excise? So what is the indicator that you guys were using to show that there was a decrease by 50% throughout the year?
Yes, so in the report that we have for excise tax, it's a condensed report for all the different types of import items that are coming in. And so we typically, and this is the general report template, separate out cigarettes, beer, and malt, and then other commodities. Everything else falls under other commodities. So it's not just one single industry, it's everything. So if you look at the correlation between the hotel occupancy tax going down and the excise tax, it's not just one small business, but it's everybody together. So I would assume that when the hotels are only at 14% occupancy, these other big businesses are not importing as much. And so all we can tell you is what the data is telling us, right? And so other commodities is a net that captures everything else other than cigarettes and beer. And what that's telling us is that the business industries as a whole are importing less. I know you mentioned something about military, and that's something that we've noticed as well, is where are the imports coming in for materials and supplies? And I know, and we know, information that we've gotten was that sometimes it's just shipped directly. There's other ways, right, to get the materials in, so.
But most of the imports come from our direct, so customs monitor. That's why I'm trying to figure out if the businesses are filing a one commodity, meaning if it's for construction, it drops down to, I believe is it 3.5%, Chair, or
Right.
not
3% for
5%, because
construction.
normally when you import a container of items, most businesses will not list down each item. They just go for the FAK, meaning everything, they just pay the 5% rather than line item. And since there's a lot of military build up and a lot of housing are being built, I'm just trying to get an idea of what is the decrease. I see the occupancy and all that, it's there. It's not, I can see the minus, but I am mostly concentrating on the excise because at the end of the day, there's still ships coming in with a lot of containers, and I'm sure the other companies are. First, I go to other stores or hardware stores, and there's a lot of purchases going on out there. Just we're not too sure why is the excise dropping that much and not maintaining at least a decrease by 8% or but not by 50%. That's kind of hard to see. Anyways, maybe if the Director of Customs is here, we can explain later on. If he's not here, then maybe we can get it later on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Yumo. Madam Secretary, are there any members from the Division of Customs here?
I don't have
But-
customs here right now, but I can send the request to Director Mofnas regarding a more detailed category of items.
Yes.
Because this is more of a condensed reporting because it includes other tax categories. But we can get the specific, just excise tax. We can get
Yes, let that be a official request by this joint committee. We need that immediately.
There's no bonding company anymore, right? We're not, like, let's say they import a car, it's not in a bonding facility that they don't pay tax unless the car is sold.
I'm not
We're not
sure
doing that
about
right now, right?
vehicles. I know for
Okay.
cigarettes, but I'm not sure about
Okay,
vehicles. I
thank
can
you.
include that in the request.
Yes. On a follow-up, recognize the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, Ms. V, FP, and Director of Revenue Tax. Thank you, and to your team for joining us this morning. Just on the follow-up on the excise tax, I think it's important to have the detailed breakdown because obviously duty free is one that's closed down, right? So a lot of their commodities are high-end commodities. So maybe that might be the true indicator of the decrease in excise tax. But Rep. Yumo's right. There's still a lot of stuff coming in, and the big drop is alarming to us. But you also mentioned that the increase from the fourth quarter came from NMTIT, correct?
BGRT, NMTIT as well.
And NMTIT.
Yes.
With the NMTIT, are these employees coming from the construction companies or the NMTIT taxes that are being paid by the military buildup?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Is it coming from, obviously it's from construction work that's going on here in the CNMI, right? They're hiring more people for construction. Is it military base NMTIT taxes, or is it just the local businesses here?
It's the number I gave earlier is included for both the withholding taxes and the business gross revenue tax.
Can you separate that by military projects compared to local business projects?
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
can do
think
that.
that's important to have because if we don't have that, we're not even talking about touchback period yet. And if we're gonna go into touchback period next year, August, we won't be realizing this $3-some million increase. It'll actually be a negative number next year. So I think we need to have the number, work with labor so we can get those numbers as accurate as possible. But if we broke those down into quarters, what's the collections? Just based on $7 million? Let's just do NMTIT. Because that's a big number.
Of the 7 million, I'm not sure how it's broken down into quarters. I can share that report with you after this meeting.
Can we, Chairman, can we have that as an official request?
Let that be an official request by this joint committee.
So we're working on a moving target in order to address this revised budget. Obviously, we have two scenarios. That already gives us a really bad moving target. And I think the members of the legislature should have at the very least a solid target to look at. Can we, as members of the legislature through finance, have direct access to these numbers live so that we can actually see these things moving forward? Because we can't just anticipate based on the information that's being provided to us, knowing the fact that it's consolidated numbers. Can we have access to this so we can actually see where we're losing money? Because the best indication, in my opinion, would be the wholesales. The only thing that's been consistent with the wholesales over the previous financial crisis we've had in the CNMI has been flat. it's only this time where it's actually dropping. With our bad economy in the previous, whatever, 10 years, 15 years ago, wholesale has been consistent in collections. After that period, now we're actually seeing it in wholesale. Wholesale is the closest indicator where we can determine our drops. But with excise tax being lumped, it's kind of difficult for us to determine what types of legislations to come up with, right, to catch these monies potentially, or offer some sort of incentive for these businesses to come back online. So is that a possible thing, Mr. Chairman? Maybe a request from finance if we can get access to live numbers for these collections, or I guess growth, decrease, so that we actually can see that there's a target that we're trying to hit with the two different scenarios.
In response, recognize the SOF.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chair. I hear the request is for access in real time to the system, and I understand the need for data as soon as possible, and we share that same need. Obviously, we changed the revenue projection because data became available. In terms of having access real time, I would maintain the position, sorry, of the administration that this is an executive branch function, and we will work with the legislature to the extent that that's needed to provide the data as soon as available. To give you an understanding of how we gather the data, we gather it from different sources, right? We have Munis, what's posting on the Munis system collected through the Munis cashers. We have information that we have to pull from the RMIS, which is the tax category, that's currently being developed with a new developer. And then we have a third system, which is the JDE, and we have one consultant that can still do it for us, that still needs to be budgeted for in order for him to help us extract that data as well. So as much as I would like real-time data for ourselves so that we can provide you clean data to work with, it is also difficult for us to gather from 3 systems. And it's because the RMIS is still in development. And so they're building something while we're already requesting for reports and customized reports, because you want to see by industry, by a certain taxpayer, and all these different customized requests. And we're trying to work with our developer on that, but at the same time, we want them to finish the project, right? We want to get to the end result. So what all of that is to say, we would like a real-time system. However, we have to acknowledge the reality of what we have to deal with. And the soonest that we can get that data, we report it to the governor, and the governor reports it to you. And it is a very significant challenge for us, but we make it a priority to provide the quarterly reports, and then the reports that are requested even earlier than that, all the customized reports. So I hope that we can get to that time where everybody can just go online and see real-time data, but we're just not there yet. So I'd like to stress that reality right now.
Thank you for that, Secretary, but you know, it's very difficult for the legislature to also come up with accurate numbers when we do appropriate stuff, right? Obviously, the directive of the administration that came out after October 1st was the 10-hour reduction. Then on top of that, the holidays being non-paid holidays. But then a week after that, we came up with the idea that we found an additional $3.some million while we were on panic mode trying to meet a deadline to pass a budget based on a $22.9 million loss, you know, only to realize an additional amount of money in the fourth quarter. So we're working with numbers that you're providing us, but we're also not seeing stuff up front, right? So we'll be receiving information from the administration, or in the previous case was a directive coming out, and government employees are coming up to the legislature saying, the budget's passed by this, but there's a directive that's coming out to reduce work hours, knowing the fact that we've done austerity measures always through the budget process, so it covers hourly and salary reduction. And I think a lot of our employees are in limbo, whether they're getting paid the 80 hours or their 70 hours is the new 80 hours, knowing the fact that the budget says you're paid in full. So I think it's really important, and I know that we appreciate that you try to get the numbers to us at the quickest time, but maybe this time next week we're working at bigger collections or a big decrease, right? So if we can get something that's at least not necessarily a stagnant target, but something that's statistically close to that target, so we can actually produce a budget that's workable with both scenarios. Obviously, the MPOT already came out that they're sticking to the marginal account, and we're going to be passing that legislation without the indemnification, because the 24-13 already provides indemnification for MPOT to negotiate whatever types of agreement with the administration. So I think, we've done our part to be able to allow the administration and MPOT to work on this agreement so that we can free up potentially $29 million, but we're also working on a budget that's based on two different scenarios that we have to balance. We see in the paper that $5.7+ million from OIA is already in liquid cash for the first quarter. Maybe that's something to consider in the negotiations, that we can decrease by $5.4 million or $5.7 million from the loan. We can take away another $5.4 million from the remittance of MPOT, so that takes us down to $19 million. Are we going to be able to project that we can recover $19.some million for the remainder of the fiscal year, so we wouldn't have to go through this loan process with MPOT? So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ASEC.
Thank you, Vice. And just follow up on the line of questions by our Vice. With regards to the OIA funding that was received by the administration, can you walk us through with the members of the Joint Committee on where are these 5.7 funding were allocated to what agencies, Madam Secretary?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We did get awarded this week from OIA, and the specific agencies that will be receiving that funding, the award was only for 1 month, and that award goes to the Department of Finance for the IT infrastructure. This is for our Munis license, and the other IT infrastructure that's needed to run the system. It is going to Department of Corrections for inmate care. It is going to fuel, government operations for supplies and communications, with a total of $412,000.
So these are only the three agencies that are receiving the total of 5.7 million? I got 412,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's for those specific uses only.
okay. Thank you for that response, Chairman. I yield to Chairman Jude Snyder.
Thank you, Chairman JP. Madam Secretary, just kind of follow up on what Vice Chair Atto was referring to about the real-time access of, how do you say this? Real-time live access of actual revenue being collected. So I know the Planning and Budgeting Act, it requires a quarterly report, no? Which we appreciate the documents, but just for this year, perhaps because of the situation, can we, if we're going to move forward with a revised budget, are you amenable to do a monthly report, 15 days due upon every month? so that we can track it closer to that? I mean, is that something that's doable?
I don't see a problem with that.
Okay. In lieu of not being able to provide that because of the challenges you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I don't mind. I'm just trying to anticipate what challenges we would have. It would be in terms of trying to, we can run the report in terms of collection, right?
Sure.
But in terms of details, for example, what industry it's coming from, what group of taxpayers, those kind of extra details require customized reports that we request. And because we are in the development phase for the RMIS, we're limited with the resources. So I would say it's possible, but we wouldn't have the level of detail that maybe would be requested right away at the 15th day.
The only reason why is kind of to assist, maybe for the legislature to further understand the 2 million identification after, presenting it in a few weeks later, or maybe less than a month, there was an identification of an increase. So just to kind of avert those possible scenarios. So I want to go back to the closing report of the FY 2025. What typically, what is the behavior of the taxpayers or tax collection during the course of the fiscal year? Do they pay? I mean, I'm going to yield to you guys. Does everybody come during the first quarter and pay everything from the last, whatever they owe, or do they come in the fourth quarter and pay everything from what they owe the previous 3 quarters that they don't pay? Is that the representation of this increase, exponential increase in percentage? Meaning there's some collections here that are like 993% increase from anticipation, 558% increase from anticipated number, 271%, 4,379%. So that's a lot of percentage to miss target on. I can understand 5%, but if you're talking 3-digit changes, what is the behavior really?
Obviously, you're highlighting the challenge in just forecasting in this kind of economy where you can't really be certain of behaviors in the industry. And so what the data can tell us is only what's happening at that time.
And that
right?
brings me to that
Yeah.
that comment, Secretary, about the monthly reporting. So that would probably trim down that the forecast. So, but
like, if you're looking at the penalties, and even you're asking about the trends in payment, before we would see that trend in a stable economy where we have a higher collection in the second quarter versus the first quarter, and then it would drop in the third and then go up in the fourth. And for some reason, these kind of trends, it really depends on the taxpayer and then, of course, the performance of their business, right? If there's any revenues for them to report. It's good for us when they report. And so the first thing that we think of, if there's no other change to the economy, is that the tax enforcement is working. Because we're getting them on installment payments. We're getting them to come in and pay their taxes. So that's the first thing that we would think of. And then it would be certain projects that are driving, of course, the revenue.
Can I interject? And I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we just go down to charges for services on your fourth quarter report and go to the, I guess this is the second page, the one that you attached to the letter to the governor. Can you explain can you give an example? What is various charges and charges for services? Because the anticipated figure for Public Law 24-1 was 158,000 for the year, but we collected 1.8 or 1.7.
I would, Chairman, I would ask Treasury to look into that number and provide you an answer. So that's on line 34, charges for services.
Yeah. I mean, it's right now it's, I guess every penny counts, no? So when you see this increase like this, it's good for the government. But I'm just curious, what is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can, Treasury can get the detail, and we'll
And-
provide that.
And I think it's the same order as the Chairman JP had asked, you know, if we can just formalize it, and consider this as a formal request. And I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I will yield to one of the members of the Fiscal Affairs. Okay, I think I'm gonna yield on that question simply because it has everything to do with the indirect costs with the OGM. So I know it's gonna be a lot of an exchange questions. So I will recognize Senator Manny Castro.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, earlier it was mentioned, and just understanding the different department or divisions that you oversee and how everyone's not necessarily using the system. I mean, using the same system or using multiple systems throughout the budget process. Even during my time in the House, it was evident that the staff are overworked because they're pulling sources from different databases. So I just want to make just a recommendation because we've been there before, maybe not the same industry, but just getting with a good IT professional to look into an ERP with an API setup. Because if the college can do this, then the CNMI government should be able to do this. And the college has way less resources than the CNMI government. But during my time at the college, we had a legacy system that was old, pretty much a DOS system, just like J.D. Edwards. The finance department at NMC was using a different system. The enrollment department at NMC was using a different system. But we just got this system called Argos with an API built in that made all the systems talk to each other, so that if you needed the reports in real time, you can get it, rather than manually checking all the different sources, which because we lost a lot of our staff, it forced us to look into those kind of methods. So it's not as expensive as we think. We just have to get the people that know how to do it. And sometimes we don't need to do a contract. We just need, there's someone in our government that knows how to get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Chairman, I'm just going to go ahead and recognize. Before I recognize, I want to recognize Senator Cruz. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Director. Secretary of Finance, do we still have problem with enforcement of taxes? Like, for example, BGRT?
I would say the data says otherwise. I say that it's showing that there's strong enforcement efforts, that taxpayers that previously were not paying, we're seeing them pay. So I would say it's the task force efforts are helping the collections now, but we need that same kind of support moving forward to ensure that it continues.
So because I'm thinking about when commodities come in, right? Revenue, custom at the airport to monitor, and they've been charged with excess tax, right? So I'm kind of like wondering, because back in the 17th legislature, the reason why we created a revenue and tax director, because finance requesting for a director to have a strong enforcement. But I don't know, I just want to completely understand how you guys, revenue and tax, how they're enforcing when commodities coming in, versus are you guys doing any kind of inventory on all businesses, or?
That would be the customs director on the ports, managing that operation before they release any cargo. They would make sure that it's assessed and booked in the system. So that's separate from the function of revenue tax.
Any kind of accounting, whether it's matching what is coming and what the vendors are paying?
That would be caught in the audit process. So
Because
that's the scope
still-
of enforcement on
I still don't
revenue
believe why
tax.
we're declining with collection, because, you know, a lot of stores here, even small stores, are not closing down. You know, we can probably believe that it's very bad when, you know, the businesses are closing down because it's very bad, but looks like they're not closing, even small businesses. And I'm assuming that they continue to operate because of underreporting. And any kind of strategy to rectify whether there's a lot of underreporting?
Yeah, so in regards to underreporting, that's all tax enforcement through audits on our examination branch. We have made efforts in increasing our enforcement with, you know, we did some training with the auditors. But we do lack the manpower to widen our scope in audit, right? So we can only audit so many businesses within the year due to the number of auditors we have.
So what kind of messages you're sending to underreporting? Do you penalize them and setting an example to others that no?
Well, it depends. It can go up to, we can apply civil penalties depending on how severe the underreporting is.
Because I don't believe in that kind of penalty is to shut down, to close down. I think it's better if
Yes.
you give them a dollar amount of penalty rather than closing down a business because they violated whatever the violation might be. Because I know a lot of incident that if they violate, for example, unsanitary, they don't impose a dollar penalty. They close it down for 3 days, and everybody knows that the store not going to make money. The government as well is not going to make money.
The tax
What kind of penalty you guys is it?
Yes, the tax administration still applies the full penalty. However, there are various methods to work with the business, because the goal is not to kill the industry, not to close the business. If the business is struggling financially, there's other options that the business can utilize to resolve their tax debt, to the point where we can even determine if the tax debt is uncollectible, depending on how unwell the business is. We can also compromise certain amounts of the tax due as well. So there are methods the business can pursue depending on their financial situation.
Because if you guys need help from the legislature in regards to penalties, you let us know so we can, draft legislation, not to be not friendly business people who kind of think, but at least to be fair with others that are honest with reporting. So again, I just wanna, raise that up because I remember back then the reason for finance that are not really enforcing that part because it cannot be. They said that the secretary is overwhelmed with the work. They need a revenue and tax director to run that site to have a effective collection. So, and I thank you. And I hope that if finance needs better way, let us know so we can introduce legislation to, if you're not giving you the authority to promulgate penalties, and it has to be by legislation, let us know so we can, fix that. Not to drive away business, but I know that a lot are not, for me, I feel that there's a lot of underreporting because a lot of businesses, I try to, from San Roque or all the way to Cobbler, a lot of small businesses inside the, what they call in Philippine province. Not the business area, but further in, there's a lot of business, small businesses, and I still don't believe that they continue to operate business with this kind. When they said the economy is bad, but they still continue to operate. Why? That means they can still manage because of whatever I mentioned today. Maybe if they earn $500 this month, they will probably just remove 1 0 and make it 50. And when they come to you guys to report, how do you guys, if you see the difference between monthly reporting in businesses, if it's very, like very drastic decrease, you didn't go after those and find out as to why? For example, they're making $500 a month, but all of a sudden it went down to $50. It's just a small, just a simple example. Ne? Do you guys get bothered by finding more information as to why all of a sudden $50 only?
Yeah, so we have to, again, we only have a limited number of auditors, so we can't audit every business yeah. So we have to prioritize like who we're gonna audit, what's gonna result in the biggest return on investment, how much time they spend on the audit and what they're gonna get out of it as well. So, we understand the situation and what you're saying. I agree with you. It's just we can't get to everybody. We can only get to so many at a time.
And if I may add, Senator, for our 4 auditors that are actively working to audit all taxpayers, different industries with different priorities, in our citizen-centric report for FY 2025, our 4 auditors closed 21 audits and collected 1.1 million in underreporting. So I would say these 4 people are rock stars because they multiplied their salaries times 10 in terms of return. And yes, if you're willing to have more auditors, we're always open to more FTEs and more funding. But again, we understand the situation, we understand what's needed, and we can't get to everyone, but we hope to get to the ones that will make an impact on the budget.
Thank you. And I'm not saying that you guys are not doing your job, but I'm just trying to find something else in the box to see how we can help one another. Anyway, the 3.7 million. Where'd that come from? The additional, no.
So that's
It
the
says there
Q4 report that the
100% from
chairman.
2025?
Yes, these are collections from 2025.
Okay, so why are you including this into the
Yeah.
2026 projection?
Because it's realized additional funding that we cannot spend without budget authority, so we are including it in this budget revision so that this body can authorize the
This is
funding.
actually cash on hand, right?
Yes,
You're not projecting, but you're
No,
including
no.
in the,
yeah. We're including
be-
it on top of the projection.
because to my understanding, this one should be a supplemental funding, not an inclusion moving forward. Am I correct?
So, because the fiscal year has ended already, right, that appropriation has expired, so in good faith and in transparency, we are providing it here with the detail of where it's coming from and giving this legislature notice of
Because
that amount so that
I
it can
think
be appropriated.
In order to follow what you're saying,
Yeah.
it has to be revised on the House concurrent resolution. We cannot just include this without including in that. Am I correct, or?
I believe that's why we're revising the revenue, so that it's not
Because
gonna be
when- When you guys submit
179.
this one, that one is not within the estimate that the administration or you guys submitted.
It's
so
additional
I-
revenue.
I don't know,
pending
I
an
wanna ask the council
appropriation.
whether this is proper to include this 3.7, 2025 into the 2026 projection.
Councils?
Or we can ask, maybe we can ask our fiscal analyst if we're not ready to.
If no
respond to
objection
that.
from the members, can I just allow Mr. Dave Dimapon to share his observation of the question that being posed by Senator Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'd like to address this question to Secretary of Finance. Secretary of Finance, in your books, when you do your accounting, do you use the 60-day rule in recognizing revenue? Do you know what it is, if you may ask?
We're using the modified accrual accounting, so in terms of revenue, it's on a cash basis, and that's how it's been even before I came into this office. And so we've continued that revenue recognition based on the modified.
I understand that. General fund uses modified accrual basis of accounting.
Yes.
And under modified basis of accounting, right, there are two criteria that you have to meet: measurable and available. Cash basis on modified accrual basis of accounting is not actually cash, because all of them may not be collected as cash, but they are expendable resources for the fiscal year. And what Senator Cruz is alluding into is that when we collect revenue in a 12-month period within a fiscal year, we're talking about current financial resources. And the way you recognize in the modified accrual basis of accounting revenue, right? You have to test two criteria: whether it's measurable, right, and whether it's available. In terms of measurability, you have to, one, determine whether the amount is known, whether you can look at the amount and it's collectible. Number two, right, when you look at the collectability, you also have to see whether that amount can be reasonably estimated. So if those two criteria can be met, then that criteria measurability is recognized for collection. Then we move on to the next one, availability. Availability criteria contains two sections. One is whether it's legally due, whether the money is due on that fiscal year. And when we're referring to FY 2025, the 3.7 million were actually collected in FY 2025, and therefore that collection should be recognized in that fiscal year. Provided further, right, that you have to test two amounts there. One, whether the collection is made in the end of the fiscal year, and two, whether the collection is collected after the first 60 days of the end of the fiscal year, in time to pay for the obligation for the current fiscal year. So in this case, I believe, Mr. Chairman and members, the $3.7 million, we need to get further information from the Secretary of Finance. Like, one, when did you actually record this transaction? When did you actually receive this money? And what accounting entries were used so that we can determine whether or not this revenue should be deferred for FY 2026. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dave. Senator Cruz, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Dave. I still want to hear the council's legal opinion on this, whether we're not violating any budgeting act on, by including
Yeah,
this into
Council
the
Joe?
2026
Joe Bermudez? Yeah.
projection.
It sounds, I know that it was collected in 2025, but the FY 2025 budget is over. So we're into fiscal year 2026, so I think it should be accounted in 2026 budget. That's my opinion. I mean, 2025 is gone.
Thank you, Council, because I understand the budgeting act, right? When it says when over 250, then should be a supplemental. Then when it's went under, then it's not a supplemental, right? The administration will. Yes. So if that's your opinion, and we're not gonna get in trouble violating our own law, then I think I'm good. But I just want to raise this because based on the expert here regarding the budget, the number. I don't know. For me, I just want to make it very clear that, Chairman, that we're doing the right thing, and we don't want to pass something that later on we will regret because it's not the proper way to, or we're violating our own law.
No, you're absolutely. It's a legitimate question, Senator Cruz, and I understand, and that's good. Council Joe Bermudez, so your opinion based on your review of the Planning and Budgeting Act, the question posed by Senator Cruz with regards to the realized 3.7 million revenue potentially collected on fiscal year 2025 is being reported for the revised for what's before the 2020 FY 2026. Are we in order or are we?
In my opinion, it should be in 2026 because if that money was collected in, let's say, April of 2025, and you collect it, then we can go back and revise that budget. But 2025 is gone. So I think, and it's my opinion, that it should be included in 2026.
Okay, so, well, one more time, Dave, go ahead and provide guidance to what Councilor Joe Bermudez just said.
I just want to clarify this to Council Bermudez. If we look at the evidence of this transaction that is reported in FY 2026, or if it's actually recorded in FY 2025, I think, Mr. Chairman, Chairman JP and Chairman Actionator, we would like to make this an official request to the Secretary of Finance and get the information regarding this transaction. One is we want to know what accounting entries were used to record this $3.7 million of realized collection in FY 2025. Number two, Mr. Chairman, we want to know what types of revenues were realized, making up the $3.7 million. And number three, a copy of the receipts indicating that these collections were made in FY 2025. Thank you. Yeah.
Recognize Secretary of Finance to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. So again, if you can refer to the letter that I sent to the governor, providing the report, it will give you exactly what you're asking for. And so on attachment A, it will show you the Q4 report, and cumulatively, after you see all the revenue collection categories after the payment of debt service, you will see at the very last line the 3.7 that is identified. So it's not one single accounting transaction that has the 3.7. It's overall after all the collection and after the debt service, you will see the 3.7. Then on attachment B is the revenue projection for FY 26, and on the last page, after the projection is the additional funds from FY 25 to be appropriated, which brings you to the total available for appropriation. So again, it's not one single transaction for a receipt, it's overall. So again, this information is already provided to you, and you are wanting details on the BGRT, the excise tax, and all the receipts. That report I've written down as an official request. But again, I just want to clarify where the 3.7 is coming from. Yes, it is cash available for appropriation, and that's why it's included in the budget, so that you are all aware that it is available and ready for appropriation.
Okay, I want to move forward from this discussion, but I want to recognize for the Senator Cruz one more time before I recognize the Vice President.
Mr. Secretary, so this 3.7 million was collected prior to the new fiscal year?
Yes, it's FY 25. FY 25.
Okay, what month did you guys?
This is September.
Yes. Before
Fourth
the end of
quarter.
this.
Yes.
So you don't have time to report a revised budget in July because it was submitted
Part
in
of
September?
Fourth quarter.
Okay. Okay, now, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in regards to the construction, the construction tax, developers tax, this is the, because I see here the estimated, the proposed estimated for FY 20, and then there's a revised by you guys, a decrease of 90%. From 5 million to 500,000. How's that?
We significantly reduced because of the lack of collection on construction tax.
So how did you estimate it at 5 million, then all of a sudden down to
So it was based on a
just
certain
10%
project.
of 10% collection projection?
Yeah. So based on certain projects, we
What are these?
initiated
What are
that.
these? Is this the commodities, construction materials coming in to?
These are all
Is this the new law,
construction.
right?
Yes, the new
So
construction
less
tax
coming
law.
in?
Yeah, I can defer that to the Director of Rev and Tax on the challenges of the construction tax and the amendments that we have shared that are needed.
Is this is a tax that's imposed on construction projects. The law was passed in January. It hasn't even been a year yet. What DRT is doing right now is just, sending out notices and doing outreaches. Once the year is over is when our examiners will start to conduct audits on missed filings and with the projects. So yes, that 5 million was projected under the assumption that every construction project that we saw coming that fiscal year was going to file and pay their taxes. However, that was not the case this year.
Because this is to 90%. How did you come up with 5
Because
million
the
and then
collection was zero for FY 2025.
zero collection?
Zero collection on construction tax. And so we're hoping that with the amendments to the construction tax law, that we'll see a higher rate of collection on that. And again, it's a conservative amount of 500,000. And should we exceed that amount, that would mean a supplemental budget. But at this time, with a conservative approach, considering the collection trend.
I understand about supplemental, but punishing or a good government work, no hardworking employees, no?
Well, it's not about punishment. It's about just
No,
looking
because
at
if
the
you less
collection.
collection, eventually we're gonna be, you guys are requesting for austerity, right? So this is one of the factor of
Yes.
not having that number up because, and then I don't want to hear to see a supplemento after you impose a austerity measure.
Senator, we all want stronger collection, more collection on
Yeah,
the
but-
construction tax, so we're willing to work with this legislature to improve the legislation so we can collect more. However, there is no collection in FY 2025 to support a level of 5 million. And so again, we're saying this is a conservative amount that we've included, considering that we had, education outreach, and we are making connection with other agencies to increase enforcement. But until such time we see contractors paying this tax, then we can consider increasing the projection. But at this time, we stand at 500,000.
Is that projection mostly in Saipan, or you guys not
This is Commonwealth.
taking Tinian into consideration, the military no bureau?
This is Commonwealth-wide.
I know Kamuan, but which senator are most affected here?
Again, the current version of the construction tax says that any projects prior to January of this year are exempt. So if you're talking about big construction projects that have been ongoing, those are exempt. So that's one of the issues.
Thank you, Secretary, and I just wanna, ask Revenue Tax to full force the BGR collection, on the reporting. We want business to continue to operate, but we want them also to be honest in reporting their, to the Revenue Tax. And thank you, and you for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz. Thank you, Secretary and Director of Revenue Tax. At this time, I recognize the Vice Chair of the committee, Senate Floor Leader Donald Manglonia.
Thank you, Chairman Hofschneider. Just going off of what Senator Cruz had brought up, for the construction tax, the House had passed it on the 9th of this month, and so it sits in the Senate right now. And seeing as how the MPOT loan hasn't passed the House, or it's expected to pass the House this week, and following that would be the revised budget. If the Senate gets the construction tax out in time prior to any amended budget, is that a scenario that we can consider in terms of the new projection that may come from the amended law to the construction tax?
Again, if once that amendment is passed, we would, before adjusting the forecast, we would like to see collection on that tax so that we could have a reasonable certainty that we will start collecting on it. So it puts us in a stronger position, but again, we wouldn't revise the forecast until we have the data to.
So how is that 500,000 being projected? And how has your actions in the past in terms of coming up with this projected revenue
to include as part of the appropriation when that bill hasn't even been signed into law? Why can't that be applied the same way here?
Yeah, this projection is based on the current law, and it's significantly decreased from the original, considering that we are partnering with other agencies such as DPW and finding ways where we can hold permits until payments are made. But again, amending the law would give us a stronger position on collection if they were to challenge that they are exempted from this tax. So it's one thing to pass and assess the tax, it's one thing to collect it. So again, this is a very, I know this is an area that we could use to increase the budget, but right now, because cash is such an issue, I wouldn't increase this revenue projection and increase expenditures, and no cash is coming in to pay the payroll. So again, we're taking a very conservative approach. That's the way that we approach that specific line. And we appreciate the House's support in passing the amendment. So again, we are open, and we are looking at that as one category that we want to revise, but again, we're just taking a cautious approach.
Okay, because even in terms of taking a cautious approach, we're projecting $500,000, which we may not even see, right? And so that would also force a budget revision or a proportionate cut. So why include it in this amended budget if we're not seeing any collections coming in right now?
Again, it's because of our enforcement actions that we plan with DPW, and I know that all these projects will need an occupancy permit, so we're looking at all other enforcement tools to hold those things until tax compliance is there. So,
Okay.
again,
Moving on to my next question, what impact do you anticipate the federal shutdown will have on our general fund resources? For example, will the NAP be affected after October 30th, or is that funding that we already have for the following fiscal year? And that any additional month we go into this federal shutdown, we may see a further decline in our resources? What is that looking like?
Thank you for the question. From prior meetings, what I've heard from the NAP section is that there is a kink in the agreement that may delay the November payouts for food stamp, although they have that EBT system. So I'm believing that the first month will be okay, but they still have to do their due diligence in trying to get that agreement so that all the funds will come out on time. If I may, in regards to the construction tax, we do have several government federal projects that are in line to come out, and especially like the broadband and several of our outdoor recreational park projects. They're significantly promising. How we just need more project managers to be on top of the workload. It's taking a toll when we have to get reduced with our hours, and we cannot really push out as much as we can, even though all the funds are available for our salaries for the federal side. So there are expected delays, and the construction tax might dip down. That's all I can say.
But in terms of the federal shutdown, what percentage of our federal monies are being held back until such time that issue gets resolved?
I mean, can I explain about what happened? The repurpose. We are seeing a decline in a lot of our energy grants. We are seeing that they are being taken back or terminated. The current Trump administration doesn't really support solar. We are seeing more diesel a project base getting approved that might affect us, our future solar projects. It's a there's different direction from the different administrations, so we're just trying to follow suit with all those grants that we have.
Right, but I guess my question is based on what you're testifying here about some of these grants being terminated, or if there's any grants being held back by the federal shutdown, has that been factored into the forecasted revenue for the current fiscal year?
Senator, I'll give you a good example. The EV grant, our project manager just got furloughed like 2 days ago. So we're still waiting for developments in there, what's going to happen with the grant. You know, it's the shutdown does affect a lot of our agencies, but we're giving guidance to continue with our projects. And if there are any agencies that are in that predicament of a shutdown, we'll let you know in a future statement.
But I guess my question is, do those changes in policies or plans affect the general fund revenue? And if so, how much of that do we see?
In terms of general fund revenue, what is impacted here, I would say most directly is the indirect cost reimbursement projection, because that's based on federal expenditures. So,
But in terms of federal projects from excise taxes and all of that stuff?
There's going to be, of course, a general across the board, and if they cancel grants and then all the federal employees, our federal employees get laid off. But that's not the signal that we're getting. Right now, it's more of a delay on the federal side in terms of processing grants, answering questions, grant management. We haven't received any terminations because of this shutdown. So that is not information that we have. The only experience that we can pull from is that we're getting automatic replies from U.S. Treasury, from federal grantor agencies. They're just not responding. That doesn't mean our funds are terminated. It just means that we're not able to move forward. If we upload a certain drawdown request, it might take a week or two for them to process it on the federal side, or not process it until the shutdown is over. So it's more of a delay right now.
But that would also have an impact on the first quarter collections, right? And so how would we supplement?
It's hard to determine the impact right now because they're still able to spend on the grants, right? And we're still in October. So hopefully, the drawdowns are not impacted right now because there's just a minimal delay. So I would say we just have to monitor the situation closely if we start losing grants. Yeah.
And then, sorry, just one more thing. Going back to the NAP program, you said there's a problem with the linking. So it's just an internal issue, and it's not something that USDA is saying that they don't have the funds for because of the shutdown. Are we secured for the whole fiscal year?
I would need to talk to the Secretary of DCCA for more clarification, but that was my last conversation with Ms. Deli from Food Stamp. I will get back to you, sir.
Okay. And then holidays, are the employees going to be paid during holidays right now, currently?
The employees will be paid for the holidays because what we would need for us to be able to, suspend holidays, it needs a statutory authority that we're asking also the legislature to consider should scenario 2 be in place.
Right. I just want to get clarification because I think there was an EO, right, that came out, and so that doesn't cover, or that wouldn't apply then, without the statutory exemption.
I believe that was Section 6 of the directive. We will not apply Section 6 because we do not have the statutory authority to do that, and that's why we're asking, the governor has asked in his letter to the legislature when the budget was submitted to
consider.
consider that.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Well, thank you, Florida Maglonia. At this time, I would yield to Chairman JP. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. And at this time, I recognize Representative Marisa Flores.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, SOF and team, for being here. A lot of this is really concerning because we have a proposed budget from the governor for the 29 million and another scenario without the 29 million. Each of them, you say, helps the community, which is what the scenario 1, and scenario 2 is about sacrifice. And when you look at that and you put this pressure now on the legislature, I don't think that's a fair assessment, because as you're now talking about how all of this money is being recorded, we really don't have any information as to the accurate numbers that the Secretary of Finance and its department receives, because you have consolidated accounts that you need now to separate. I mean, it's like a bank account, you know? When you write a check, you don't just say all others to Happy Market. There's a receipt, and you separate it. That's how the taxes are received. So it really boggles my mind as to why we don't have the accurate numbers, because you guys are consolidating stuff. So please understand the frustration that I'm receiving from the executive branch employees who may now face being furloughed or removed if the $29 million loan doesn't pass. And then on the second scenario, it's wonderful. We only reduce 70 hours and all these other things that happen. But what strikes me, Madam Secretary, is that you mention all of these scenarios, and in your letter dated October 13, you provide us some numbers, and you indicate the 7.7 million, and you have the additional funds for appropriation at 3.7, which Senator Cruz mentioned. And then you mention your gross business tax up 16%, wage and salary 24%, personal income tax 289% increase, and penalties and interest at 415%. So, my question to you is, now let's take into account right now, most current, is the 5.7 million that was received, thank God, from the federal government, because we have to demonstrate that we're suffering. We have to demonstrate that we're broke. We have to demonstrate that, oh my gosh, we can't do anything to help our people. That's the problem. So, you mentioned in your letter that SOF, the department, will receive 1.5 million to maintain the Tyler Munis financial management system and required IT infrastructure, enhancing fiscal transparency, cybersecurity, accountability, and efficiency. Out of the 1.5 million, or out of the 5.7, only 400,000 was given for this first quarter. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how much did you get?
So the award to Department of Finance for the IT system is 200,000.
And what is that going to pay for?
It's specifically for IT costs, including Munis license and any supporting infrastructure costs.
Any supporting infrastructure costs. Can you break that down to me?
That would include cybersecurity software. That would include the Microsoft 365 licenses for every user that accesses the Munis system. So that those are user licenses. And then you guys were just installed the FortiGate client. That's the VPN that allows you to access the system outside on your laptop or at your offices. So those are the required IT support that I'm saying in order for Munis to run. Because if we had Munis and we only paid for Munis, only Department of Finance would have access to it. But then we have users outside our office, such as all the agencies, the legislature, to approve in Munis, right? So it's all of those IT software, additional software that we need to make the system work.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how much was the software license?
The software license for Munis itself is around 300,000.
Okay.
And then the Microsoft 365 for over 1,000 users is about 1.5 million. And then we have additional software. I believe the budget breakdown was provided by OIT in their budget request. I believe it's about 2 million or 2.5 million. So we're taking into account other resources that are being provided by OIA.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in your press conference, you mentioned that there was supposedly some other grant from OIA specifically just for the Secretary of Finance at 4.5 million. Is that correct? The very first press conference that you guys had at the governor's
That's a
office.
proposal, it's not a grant award. We submitted a package to OIA for a technical assistance grant, and that would support the Department of Finance to catch up with its audits.
And what it did, does that have a grant number, Ms. Vicky?
No, it's not
No?
approved. It's a proposal. So
It's a proposal.
package pending for award.
Okay, and how do you, is this a proposal through the 702? Is this a proposal from the Covenant 703? What kind of
No,
proposal is this?
This is the annual technical assistance grant. It's an annual TAP grant that the Office of Grants Management collects proposals from all agencies on technical assistance that's desired, and then we submit our proposal to OIA, and we compete with the
Okay.
other territories.
All right, got it. So it's 4.5 million. So.
That was
let me-
just finance, though. There's
Yeah.
other proposals. I know EPI has.
Okay, so
the-
finance, let's just talk about finance, because what we're saying here is that we don't have access to what's going on over there, which I really do think that the legislature should have access. I really don't think it's an executive branch power.
There
It
would not be
is-
access to the 4.5 because it's a proposal.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, in order for you to say increased transparency means allowing us to see how you're drawing this money down, where it goes, when it was received, and all this beautiful stuff. Because we really can't make a decision if the numbers are not correct, right?
I'd like to respond to that, just because you've used a receipt from Happy Market as an analogy to the report from the Department of Finance. We received thousands of transactions. We received $167 million. This is not one simple transaction. And this revenue report is the best way to compile thousands of lines of transaction over one entire year so that you can make a policy decision.
Okay,
The numbers here are the receipt,
okay,
right?
okay, great. That's good to know. Because Senator Cruz was actually asking about that. But since you're saying right now on the record that you do have it and the dollar amount figures or the figures provided are receipts, okay? That's on record. So if you want to increase into Munis, you're putting more money into the system that has become a nightmare, if you ask me. Will this system now allow us, right, to fill out a form from you, because you have a form on the Secretary of Finance website that we can access? Office of OIT User Access Request Form, Acceptable Use Policy, which for me, if I have to fill that out, Data Transfer Request Form. So if I fill out one of those forms, is there a system flowchart that says no and yes, and what happens if you deny me? Because when you open this form, it says CNMI Government Computer System, user information, requester's name, access, unique login, requester's job title, employee status, user responsibility agreement, manager's responsibility agreement, Section B, computer access requested, access to J.D. Edwards subsystem, access to the Board of Education BOE, access to the CNMI custom subsystem. And then Section D, approval enterprise management. Who is that? Enterprise
Office of
software
OIT.
approval. Who does that?
OIT.
OIT, okay. And then it says Section E has all this training components. So if I fill this out, would I be approved? Probably not,
It would
right?
be pending review. That's why
Yeah,
it's
but
an
probably not
application.
because you insist that it's an executive branch.
To make a clarification on that, this is reviewed for your level of access. Just because somebody submits an application doesn't mean they're going to gain the access right away. That's why this form exists, to provide role-based access. And that is a cybersecurity practice. So again, we
All right.
screen every person, not just legislators, it's every single employee of the government that requests access. I can't just give anybody access to another expenditure authority's account. There has to be a basis, a statute that allows that access. And this helps us provide that kind of security. So again, it doesn't imply that once you submit this, you get automatic access.
That's
No.
not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, so this is your system set up. So you have a mapping resource? Does the OIT have a map so that says, okay, here's account number 1, this is the access, it can go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you have all of that? Does OIT have that system mapping?
I'm pretty sure they have something that allows them to screen for role-based access.
Will that be open to the legislature if
I'm sure if you request it, but again, we have to manage security, so that can be an official request.
Okay. Has any of the government agencies been hacked anytime last year?
Hacked.
Compromised for ransom?
I don't know at the top of my head right now, but I can make that
Okay, because back in
clarification.
2023, the government got hacked a total of 4 times. But we have monies that you would like to use for other things, like hiring more people and doing whatever. When I think then, if this is where you're going, right, should be going to cybersecurity. Because we don't even have money to pay ransom even if we wanted to. That's one. So take a look at how you want to spend that money, because I don't think that you should spend it for any more if we're transitioning into technology, which everybody now is forced to do because we really can't afford anything at this point. But you have a beautiful system that you claim works well, and many of us can disagree that it doesn't. Because whoever got this system did include J.D. Edwards, and now we have J.D. Edwards and Munis trying to get married, and it's not happening. So, with that said, we have federal funds. How much in federal funds do you anticipate for fiscal year 2026?
In the April submission, there is volume 2, and it's stipulated there, I believe it's over $1 billion.
Over $1 billion. Wow, that's good. Do you have any, are these staggered dates, or is it, do you see how many in the first quarter, second quarter? How is this going to be drawn down to the Commonwealth?
It's not only what's anticipated in FY 2026, but what's currently active, and some grants go back to like 5 years ago, that they have a performance period that goes beyond 2026. So those are accounted for.
Okay, so it's over 1 billion, Ms. Virginia. 1 billion?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a lot of money. Okay. May I ask that you keep us abreast when this money comes in? But I'm pretty sure that the Secretary of Finance will go ahead and include that on her quarterly report to the chairman and to the legislature. So here's another question, because it's come to my attention that the federal programs, all this money that we receive, and Mr. Epi might want to chime in if he wants to. We have all this federal money coming into the Commonwealth, and there's a process which I assume SOF has, which is called an AOA. Can you tell me what that form is?
Can you please clarify what's an AOA?
I'm not sure. It was told to me that any agency who would like to have their money drawn down, so it's an information form that is given to the Secretary of Finance office or department to indicate to the receiver of the department what the grant number is, what the award total is, what the spending, who the expenditure authority is, what they can spend the money on, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct, Mr. Epi?
The AOA form is advice of allotment. It's a budgetary document that circulates around to the body
Okay.
here for budgetary purposes only.
All right. So here's my problem, because it was brought to my attention that we're not drawing down fast enough. So what's the point of having an AOA that's in the system and you can't seem to draw fast enough? Or if someone needs an approval as to why someone from the federal agency or employed under a federal grant gets to travel and no one else gets to travel. Who determines that? Because if the AOA is already filled out, that means drawdown. You already have all the information you need. There should not be any other reason that those forms and that money is going to be held so that we can't have any money. So since that is now a problem, how much is in batches, I guess, at the Secretary of Finance office is still pending to be inserted or inputted for drawdown for this fiscal year or this quarter?
Before I pass this question on to Treasury, who manages the drawdown process now, I'd like to clarify that the allotment advice form is used when the overall grant award is established or changes. So we use that to ensure that what we are posting to the system matches the grant award for those specific authorized uses. That's number one. The allotment advice also routes if there's any additional funds to that grant and what it would be for, or if there's a de-allotment and the funds go down. Okay, there's a decrease. That is separate from the drawdown process.
Okay, Madam
Yes,
Secretary.
So I'll
before-
pass it, sorry, Rep. Flores, if we can just finish that first part of your question in terms of drawdowns, because it's really important to understand the process of getting the money in and the level of stress and overload that Treasury has assumed so that we could streamline the process. We have automated that process. Majority of grants are now automated for the drawdown process. However, there's still a manual process involved, and that's at Treasury for final upload. So if I could pass it over to the treasurer just to help you understand that process now that we've automated using revenue allocation so that the agencies are responsible for running and preparing their packages. And now all of that information is coming into Treasury to now upload. However, it doesn't guarantee a drawdown. It is only uploaded for review on the grantor side, and Connie knows all about pending review on the grantor's side. And there's a lot of pending review if the federal grantor is not able to clear it. So Connie, if you could just mention.
Yes, thank you. Is this working? Yes.
You don't really have to go into it, Ms. Connie, because I understand this
Oh,
process.
oh,
I had a meeting with somebody already, so I understand.
Okay,
But
I'm glad
please
to
feel free,
just,
I would love to hear
yes,
your
yes,
indulgence.
yes. So your concern is the delay. With when the new administration, as far as the federal side is concerned, there was an executive order that required each of the grants to submit a justification on the expenses that we're drawing for. That takes also time, and the approval process is anywhere from 5 days to even a month. And so, I mean, the awards are there. We can draw. It's the review. The new,
Okay,
yes, Doge,
Okay.
DTS, that's Defend the Spend group that has to review that.
okay,
So as far as delays, it's more on the review side than it is the submission. As
Okay.
Secretary mentioned, it's automated, and most, if not almost all of the federally funded agencies submit their drawdowns directly to Treasury.
Okay.
So,
Because you guys just had an audit press conference. I was hoping that I would get that in a form of a document, but I got it in a form of a press conference. So here's my question. There's 257 million in unallowed expenses, I guess, whatever you guys want to call it. How now do you anticipate to receive this 250 some million in unaccounted expenses? Because if an AOA was filled out anyway in the beginning, because that is an existing form that Secretary of Finance or the department has had many, many years, then why are we getting audited? I mean, I don't understand. So people were already spending, even with the AOA being filled out, so that the department has an idea of what can be spent and not spent. They were still spending on things that were not supposed to be spent on, if the AOA form was actually being applied, right?
For clarification, I would like to say that your statement is a little bit off. The
Make it correct then, Mr. Epi.
Okay, the 257 million is over time, over a period of what, 8 years? 3 years? Majority of the question cost is coming from FY22, which is about 163 million, which is primarily based on the ARPA, and the COVID reports, expenses. However, if you go into the actual report, if you download it, it will explain that some of the required documentation wasn't submitted on time. So we have to give our agencies or finance the time to respond correctly or to get that thing cleared with the auditors or with the granting agency. So just for example, even with the rental assistance, we have the documents, but it was just not accepted by EY on time. So
Don't you guys have an internal policy that already tells you all your timelines? So
yeah,
that we don't have this problem? And asking you to give us the
I
dates when the money
did
is
try
supposed to
to
be
ask
there?
for more time to submit the documents. You have to understand that our workload is immense. It's not only just one item. We have over 100 grants just by our
Okay,
office
so
alone.
Mr. Epi,
Yes.
how many grants you have currently?
About 110 for just our
110?
office.
Okay, how many will expire in 2026?
Give me a few seconds, maybe we can.
How many extensions?
We did apply for extensions.
How many?
We have maybe like 14.
14? Total
We did
cumul-
get extensions. We did receive extensions.
Okay.
That's why some of the drawdowns are also late because the extensions were just approved. So we did get an approval just like last week. You have to remember that some of these
Approval
federal
from where? From where?
OIA,
Okay, and to approve how many grants?
probably 14
14 total?
14.
What's the total package amount?
for drawdown.
No, the total package amount for the grants that you got an extension for. Because we need numbers. The reason why I'm asking you this, because I want to understand how much money is anticipated to come in and how we're supposed to spend this down. Is it in construction? Is it whatever? I need to understand this because this is the problem we're having. We don't know where this money is coming from.
I can
I
tell
have
you.
to go to the federal government website to find out, which is a horrible experience because I'm dealing with zillions of grants.
Representative
just
Flores, would you like to
excuse me.
be make that an official request by
Yes,
this
please.
joint committee so
Yes.
that we can have that in record
We can
for
have
your
that in
review?
numbers and I will move on.
Uh,
Okay, Mr. Epi, please, if you could give that in writing to the chairman, I would really appreciate that.
Let that be an official request by this joint committee.
So this, my
Please
last
proceed.
question before I yield my time. So the AOA was one of the biggest problems, and it takes about, Madam Secretary, if DOJ approves everything and says, yes, it's in line with the grant that we had approved for you, take me through that process, because our office, let's say I have a coordinator in an agency that is 95% federally funded, 5% local funded, and I fill out the AOA and I put it into the system, which you have to approve first and foremost, what happens next?
Again, we just wanted to clarify that the allotment form is only to establish the grant on the drawdown process after this person
Okay.
has worked
All right.
and has payroll charges. They
Okay.
run the revenue allocation module, which automates this report that says all these expenditures have been posted to the federal grant account. They fill out the documents, the forms, and provide the attachments and the justifications.
So you have your internal policies
Yes,
that will
that's-
align with that, so we won't have
Yes.
an audit issue later on.
I hope not,
Okay, good.
because we've provided training, we've provided documents, it's on our website, we've provided extensive assistance to
Wonderful.
agencies.
That's good to know. I applaud you for that because, man, these audit reports are not looking good.
Yes, it's in as of 2022. However, if I'd like to, if I could just finish the process, you said walk you through the process. So we would run the revenue allocation report, the agencies are running it, they have these expenditure reports. Again, we need the supporting documents that each specific grantor requires. There's different requirements for different drawdowns, and all those are packaged together, scanned, and sent to Treasury. Connie, can you take over as to how do you upload that?
Okay.
For example, ASAP.
Okay, so once Treasury process receives the drawdown request, we put it through the payment systems for whichever that grant is under. We have several. It's reviewed by Doge, as you say. Once it's approved, the money will come in just a matter of days.
Okay.
Then that's when we process the payments to the vendors.
Okay, so assuming that I need to draw down for, let's say, invasive species, and I need to travel somewhere, the AOA was filled out, how many signatures does that go through before it even gets approved?
To expense the,
Yeah.
or to draw?
To
Which one are we-
expend and then draw down. You need to spend first, right, to then request the drawdown, to show that you've been spending the money.
For travel, it has to be performed first,
Mm-hmm.
and then they file their vouchers, and then that's when the agency
Okay.
will process the full amount
All
of
right.
the expense.
All right, I don't want to get too much into that's an internal thing, but it was brought to my attention. Maybe you might want to streamline that a little bit because if it has to pass 15 people, I don't understand why it has to go through that. And that's just a exaggerated number, okay? So I'm looking at the EY, and this is FEMA, Mr. Epi. I don't know if this is for you or this is for Secretary of Finance or maybe OMB, Miss Virginia. This audit report wasn't good anyways either. So I'm hoping that all of these listings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, flag. Can you give me any status and how much, Miss Virginia, have any of these been fixed and acknowledged so that we can receive monies from all of these cluster of federal FEMA money that we have been flagged as having some kind of problem? Has this been corrected?
If it's included in the audit, then those funds have been spent,
Okay,
because it would not appear in the audit if the funds have not been spent.
okay,
And if there are question costs that relate to whatever you're looking at, this is the opportune time now for the program agency to provide those documentation if they were not provided on time, so that those question costs could be resolved and removed, or the audit finding be cleared. So the Public Assistance Office, through the GAR, Patrick Guerrero, needs to put together his staff to collect those documentation on all of the number of findings there, to try to resolve that audit and remove the question costs so that we don't have to pay it back.
right, because it's a total of $545 million and change.
It's a lot, and it's probably from maybe 4 different disasters: Mankut,
Yeah.
U2, COVID, and Sodalor.
Yeah, and just so that we know and the public knows how much money really, and this was the audit report in 2021, because I don't understand. Again, we have to demonstrate that we are desperate and we are suffering. But just for the record, so that I put this out there, federal grantors that we receive money for on this particular audit: U.S. Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Labor, U.S. Department of Transportation, U.S. Department of Treasury, U.S. National Endowment for the Arts, U.S. Endowment for the Humanities, Institute of Museum and Library Services, U.S. Small Business Administration, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, U.S. Department of Environmental Protection Agency, U.S. Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Election Assistance Commission, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and U.S. Department of Homeland Security. That's a lot of money. And I still don't understand, how is it that 29 million is still needed? I mean, I know it's revenue based. I know everything. That's the problem with that. Maybe we need more people to come in and to stop leaving. We need business. We need our tourism. We need all of this. 500 million, not to include Mr. Epi's 14 extension, not even to include the 2026, not even to include all the construction that's going on, not even to include all of this money. And so the people are really pissed off. I'll tell you that. The taxpayers, they're mad. They're mad as to why we cannot seem to get our purse in order. Number one, I'll tell you what, about the NMDs and this 29 million, they're not happy about that either. So I need to understand how, right, on the federal side, why aren't we drawing fast enough? Why aren't we spending fast enough? Spend it. If they say you're approved, spend. Where is the bottleneck here? Because you got to spend it. It's not ours to begin with. We applied for the grant. It's very clear what we're supposed to do. Nobody should be the one to say, well, I don't think they should travel because our local people are not traveling on local funds. I'm sorry, local funds have no travel. Even us here, sometimes it's the feds paying for our travel. But please, Secretary of Finance, Madam Secretary, if the money is there already, spend it so we can draw it right now. Because Mr. Epi over here, he can apply for 500 million grants. But if we're not doing our job over here to spend it, then we ain't never going to get paid for anything. Let alone, my goodness, travel. That's the whole thing right now with the federal employees and the local employees. Why do the local employees don't travel and only federal? That's a management problem. I just, you have to forgive me for being frustrated. This is the second time I'm going through this budget process, and I was watching the 23rd legislator Ways and Means hearing, and not much has changed from the 23rd to this. Everything is still the same. So where do we show any kind of improvement? And forgive the people for being pissed off. And now you're going to threaten a RIF, but not get rid of commissions that get paid $50,000? Come on, guys. Before you even threaten to lose or to give, shorten, minimize, whatever it is, take a look at all of these people that sit on the commission that get paid and fix that first. And let me know what your cost-saving analysis is on that before you start getting rid of hardworking people that don't have any other means to survive. Thank you. I yield my time.
Did you want to respond, SOF? And after you respond, the chair will call a recess for lunch break, and we will resume at 1:30. You may respond.
Thank you, Chair, and hopefully Epi has something to respond as well, but I would really like to clarify the schedule of expenditures of federal awards that's in our FY22 audit that shows 527 million expended in that year for federal programs. Those are monies that we cannot use on general fund expenditures, and that is why we need the MPLT loan to support expenditures that are not authorized by federal programs. again, I think we need to come full circle on that because yes, this $500 million does support government operations, but for specific authorized purposes according to the grant. And that's why there is still a need for general fund budget, general fund authorization. We need the $29 million loan. And yes, if we don't get it, the budget still needs to balance. And so in that case, we have to reduce expenditures. So I don't want the public to think that we have $500 million of federal money that could be used to support general fund payroll. That is not authorized. So again, I just wanted to clarify that because Rep. Flores, you did mention help you to understand. I think that's a central understanding that's needed by everybody, including the public, that we cannot use these federal funds to support general fund payroll. And again, we look forward to your assistance in passing the MPLT pension loan. It's absolutely necessary to support scenario 1. And I'll share with, or I'll pass to OMB if you have any comments on that, because we need to understand that these federal monies cannot be applied to the general fund at this point in time.
Any further wanted to respond? And just to respond to the, for the viewing public also to understand that the 29 million, the legislature had did its job with 24-13. We have pre-filed the other version that calls for authorization for marginalized transaction. That is yet to be voted on. Just for the record, for the viewing public to understand.
Just,
Ms. V?
so, Mr. Chairman, just to add on to what the Secretary of Finance had mentioned, there is a guidance that we have to follow when we receive an award. It's called 2 CFR 200. And whatever the grant terms and condition dictates on that award, we have to follow. It doesn't apply to, you know, just anybody in the general fund or for general fund operations. If the grant allows for a cost share basis, then yes, we would, you know, accept that, but we can only claim for the cost share basis.
Thank you for that response. And at this time, the chair will call a recess, and we will resume at 1:30. We are on recess.